Welcome back now to our first conversation. The federal government's total borrowing from the Central Bank of Nigeria through Ways and Means advances rose from 17.46 trillion naira as of December 2021 to 19.01 trillion naira as of April 2022. According to data from the CBN, this represents an increase of about 1.55 trillion naira within the first 4 months of 2022. Let's talk to Mr. Bismarck Rouhani now, CEO, Financial Derivatives Company. Join us right here in the studio. Good morning, sir. Great to have you.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so this conversation about Ways and Means, it's been on, for a while, and now we're sitting at 19 trillion naira. Should we be worried?
I think we should be probably alarmed because 19 trillion naira is probably about almost 35% of total money supply. And if that amount of money is being borrowed unilaterally through a process which actually is unorthodox or awkward, then we need to straighten it up. So what does that mean? It means that your debt service requirements, when it's now properly restructured, will be higher. And the Ways and Means is another way of fueling inflation. Inflation is already projected to increase to about 17.8 official inflation. But anecdotally, we see higher numbers. And inflation is not just a Nigerian-specific issue. It's now a global issue. Cost push factors, global supply shocks, and foreign exchange pass-through. So you just make things worse if you don't actually bring about a structured and orderly way of managing your debt. It cannot be done in this arbitrary and ad hoc manner. So it's a problem. And
talking about how risky is it compared to external loans?
Well, no, external loans have external burden. Obviously, as your currency adjusts, then the naira translation of your foreign currency debts become higher and magnified. But the thing is that we've cancelled out on the Eurobond program, right? Because people don't lend into a political cycle. Now, so that's one issue. But that mix of debt, one, the nominal debt, two, the mix of debt. But the most important thing, what did you use the debt to do? For consumption, for subsidy and all of that, that's totally unproductive. So the chickens will come home to roost eventually. But again, we are in a political season. So June, Democracy Day was yesterday. And people are, delegates and others are deploying their spoils.
Exactly.
So we've seen the naira strengthen because the spoils are here. And people are delegates and candidates, because in some cases delegates, both candidates, were all motivated in extraordinary ways, so that we are seeing the results. At least temporarily, it gives the naira a little boost, but we'll see how it goes.
But with all of that electioneering, activities, how is all of that playing into, inflation?
Well, the thing is that inflation, I don't think that unproductive cash injections is inflationary, and that just makes the situation worse. But the reality is that you ask yourself the question, the African countries want stability before democracy, or does plural democracy, that is elections, mean stability? The reality is that, we challenged, and democracy is actually defined in so many ways, but the cynical way of looking at it is that 100 fools cannot make a wise decision, and a million zeros will give you zero. So what you see now is pre-convention politics and post-convention politics. Pre-convention politics is about delegate procurement. Post-convention politics is about reaching the people. And the demographic divide and the average age of the aspirants compared to the median age of the governed was a real problem. But like Harold Wilson said, 7 days is a long time in politics. We have 8 to 9 months coming. And there have been so many surprises between now and when the elections play out.
Quite interesting. And talking about, elections, the next president, they have a lot of work, to do at this point. Looking at, this Ways and Means number right now, external debt ballooning, at the same time. What are the actionable plans the next president should be taking, when they take office?
You see, when you get there, like they say, what you see is what you get. What you don't see is what gets you. So, you don't go into this job this is not a job for interns. You go into this job well prepared, and if you're not well prepared, the result will be catastrophic. So, and this time you can't afford. And so I think the answer is actually people get your PVC and vote your conscience, or either you vote your conscience and you get the right outcome, or you sell your conscience and you get the unintended consequences, and that everybody pays a high price. So go vote your conscience.
So there's a big price to be paid,
Absolutely.
At this time.
No.
All right, let's look at you see the U.S. inflation. That one keeps hitting new highs. It's a 41-year high.
Yeah.
At this point. How do you see this moving the Fed's the next decision rate making?
Yeah, they meet tomorrow. I'm not a betting man, but I think that you will get 75 basis points, or maybe in the extreme, 100 basis points, but I think 75 basis points will do the job. When you do that, then you go back to say, what are the components of this inflation? The big component is the price of energy and fuel, right? It's going, average price of petrol in the U.S. is about $5.50 per gallon, which means about almost $1.45 per liter. If you convert it into Naira, it tells you what it is, right? That's almost 1,000 Naira per liter. Okay? Now, what's happening? One, the Iran deal, I understand it's being cooked. Something will happen. If they do the Iran deal, then the Iranian oil, 2.5 million barrels coming in, is a game changer. What more? Biden is going to Saudi Arabia. If they say if the mountain doesn't, if Mohammed doesn't go to the mountain, or if the mountain doesn't come to Mohammed will go to the mountain. So when you see the most powerful man in the world going to Saudi Arabia, it means that he wants to do a deal. So if those two things happen at the same time, the price of oil could come down to what we call manageable proportions. It's now 120, 122. Who knows? It could come down to maybe to 100. Even that, for Nigeria, we should be in the money. But it's, again, a tale of two cities for Nigeria. Heads you lose, tails you lose. When the price of oil increases, we don't get the revenue impact. When the price of oil increases, we feel the cost. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So there's work to be done. So I don't envy whoever is coming.
Yes, I don't envy central bankers at this point either. They have a tough decision to make because there's also stagflation. That word's being thrown around a lot. At this point, do you think it's going to get to that?
No, I don't think so. I think a lot of this is politically, because the midterm elections in the U.S. is November, so people are bandying all sorts of terms. Stagflation means very stagnant growth and spiraling inflation. I think inflation is almost peaking and starts declining. Growth is going to recover. The U.S. lifted the restriction on testing on Sunday. And the travel industry, all the JetBlue, Alaska, American, all their stock price, the hospitality, the Marriotts and all of are also growing. Their stocks are going out of the roof. So I think that you're going to see an exaggeration of things in the right direction. And therefore, global growth will pick up because it just has to. And maybe there'll be some discussions between Putin and the Ukrainians and everybody because it's not in anybody's interest for this to continue indefinitely. Right,
and we've seen, major sell-offs in, global markets and
yes.
Even in the crypto market. We're seeing Bitcoin hit new lows. Do you see these markets cooling off, these sell-offs anytime soon?
Yes. 2-3 years ago, we had COVID and markets went. Now we are in what they call the bear market. Just imagine what happens if tomorrow the Fed increases interest rates and the markets are satisfied. Right? The stock price is the present value of future earnings. These companies are doing well. Right? Look at how they're performing. It's quite interesting. I think that there's a lot of upside. I'm not speculation. The crypto and Bitcoins and all of that are speculative assets, but they also serve a purpose for payment and transactions, convenience, and it's a new world order or world disorder. I may use that word.
Right.
And therefore, it's not for the faint. It's when the tide is up that we know those who are swimming naked. So we'll see that.
Yeah. We'll definitely look out for that. Let's look at another slide from you there. We see the performance of some Nigerian banks, for the first quarter
Yes.
How do you see the performance?
Well, at the beginning of this year, we thought the banks were toast, that they were done, right? But we've seen some very interesting trends recently. I think it was overdone. They've sold down. But if you look at the banks, the tier 1 banks are doing very well. 12 of them have released results. They posted a total of 275 billion naira. But the most important thing is their cost-to-income ratio, which has shown that they are bringing it down, not as competitively as the African counterparts, but they are now bringing it down. The big risk of the Nigerian banking system is that they have euro bonds, and the price of, because interest rates are going up, and they have to refinance some of these euro bonds at a more expensive rate in foreign currency. We may have that, and God forbid, if any of them defaults or staggers, then there could be a problem. But when we look at it, we like what we are seeing at Zenith Bank, we like what we are seeing at UBA, and we like First Bank actually surprised, because, you know, they had their boardroom issues and all of that, governance, but they've come around and they brought their cost-to-income ratio down from 79% to 67%. That is phenomenal. We've also seen that they've restructured certain things. Basically, I think 1 or 2 of their loans, which were shaky, have been restructured, and that has helped. So you'll find that they've actually made a recovery of bad loans working. Some governance structures are being put in place. There are still challenges, mind you. They have good geographical prints, but branch network means nothing these days. It is converting into a digital channel for consumers, and they've actually grown their businesses pretty strongly. I never used to think that First Bank was my mother's bank and all that. But recently I've seen a lot of people say, okay, First Bank is actually the pioneer bank. They started over 120 years ago. But they've remained relevant, and they've been able to reinvent themselves and compete. Just like all the other tier 1 banks, they are across Africa. UBA has over 22 branches in Africa, the only bank licensed to do business in the US. But I think Nigerian banks have shown resilience, so that even when international banks come into this market, they've been able to withstand their shocks. Have they challenges? Now they're going to be cannibalized by fintechs, by telcos and all that. But it's when the going gets tough that the tough gets going. So we're looking forward to that. Okay.
How do you see this playing into their stock prices? Any big move as expected at this point?
I think to a large extent some of the banks are underpriced. The stock prices are But I am somebody who likes to buy into weakness and sell into strength. So I like the tier 2 banks. Why do I like tier 2 banks mainly? But the tier 1 bank that we were talking about, First Bank, because their stock was shredded by the market. People just wrote them off. So there's a lot of upside for them to get to fair value. So it's something it's a buy, right? The other ones are consolidating their position, economies of scale. You'll see UBA, Access Bank, then GTCO. Yeah, I have to say that.
Right.
I like FCMB. I have to disclose that I'm part of that process. So FCMB, Fidelity Bank have very strong.
They're ones to watch out for.
Tier 2 and Sterling, as well as IBTC. So the banking space is pretty well positioned.
Right.
How they will stave off the competition from the telcos, because telcos are the most ruthless competitors.
Right.
And
big competition
with the mobile payment system, it's not going to be funny, but like I said.
All right. We'll keep tracking to see how they progress. We'll have to leave it there now. Mr. Bismarck Urani, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company. It was great having you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right.